إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. A while ago, I spoke about the issue of dealing with children justly and how to deal with them by giving them their rights and forming a relationship where they'll want to give you your rights in the future. But this is only part of a larger topic, which is the topic, as I mentioned the other time, that's based on the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته, until the end of the hadith. And the Prophet ﷺ gave us numerous examples of the husband and the father and the wife and the mother all being shepherds or all being responsible for their flock or for their herd. So this is one of the issues. However, there's a larger issue, and this is present in every community in the world, and the Muslim community is no exception, and the Muslim community in Edmonton is also no exception, which is the issue of fulfilling the rights of those who are under your care when it comes to their health. So often, we only look to monetary issues or making sure that they have a house and they have food and they have a car and clothing and they have school supplies, and they're getting their education. However, the issue of health is often overlooked. And even more so, Wallahu musta'an, and it's a more hidden issue, is the issue of mental health. Because there's this misconception within our community, and Allahu A'lam, it's obviously a cultural issue, it's not an Islamic issue, because this misconception doesn't comply with Islam. It's more of a cultural issue. That the idea of mental health isn't really a real issue. It's just the person isn't really doing what they're supposed to, or they're not listening to their parents, or they should just man up and get a job, or they should just get out of bed, or they should just stop being scared, or whatever the case is. And it's often overlooked. However, because it's so hidden, the effects of it are much greater. So for example, if a father sees his child in pain and they keep complaining that their arm is hurting, and I hurt my arm and there's pain and I took medicine and it won't go away, after a day or two or maybe 3 days, they'll go to the hospital, they'll go to their family doctor, and they'll get it taken care of. Likewise, if a person's wife complains that they have a headache and they take Tylenol and it doesn't go away, and on, they try to monitor what their sleep is and on, and it doesn't go away, they're going to take them to the doctor. However, if we look at the same thing and flip it to where it's no longer a matter of physical health, it's completely ignored. Not only is it ignored, it's almost laughed at and talked down to the point where the person may be suffering, but they don't do anything about it. So what are some examples of this? The first example, and this is widespread, Wallahu musta'an, is when a person gives birth to their child. It's very common despite what people will try to tell you, that after someone gives birth, they fall into a matter of depression. And they lose interest in whatever they were interested in, and they want to be by themselves, and they can't get out of bed, and they can't take care of their responsibilities inside and outside of the home. And I'm talking about a woman here. So what is the first thing that the community views this as? She just doesn't know how to be a mother. She's a bad wife. Her parents didn't teach her how to be a good mother, or how to deal with raising a child, or something like this. So then what happens? This person is already suffering from an actual illness, a medical illness. It's not something that, some witch doctor made up in the jungle. No, it's a real thing. Then the community starts to ostracize her. She can't take care of her kid, and we used to hear from her all the time, and now we don't hear from her, and she doesn't call her mom, and look, her husband is suffering and whatever. Then this thing gets worse. So what happens when it gets worse? She starts to have bad feelings towards her child. Because all of this started when I had this kid, and look what this kid's ruined my life. Then they start treating the child well. Then the child gets worse. And it makes the mother worse. And it's this vicious cycle. And it's all blamed on, she's just lazy. But if we looked at it differently, what happens down the line when a mother doesn't connect with their child early on in their life? This is one of the worst mental illnesses, or one of the most difficult mental illnesses to treat, is when the mother doesn't connect with the child at a young age. And it results in behavioral problems with the parents and at school, and it results in not being able to have good relationships, not being able to make friends or keep friends, and this cycle goes on. Then later down the line, the parents are like, we can't deal with this kid. He doesn't care what we say. Every time we tell him to do something, he just laughs at us. He's failing in school. So what are we going to do? We're going to hit him, and that'll teach him how to act. And then the separation gets worse, and then he acts worse, and so on, until this person's life is essentially done, except with the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, if we looked at it from the beginning and said, okay, well, this is an illness, if the husband was aware, if her parents were aware, if her friends were aware, they could have advised, you know what, this is a postpartum depression, get it checked out, and it could have went away within a month. But there's this mentality that when it's physical illness, yes, you can go to the doctor and you take medicine and you have an operation and you go to physiotherapy and on and on. But mental health, just shut up and deal with it. Likewise with children. And this is where it becomes more dicey. And the reason, another thing that people will say when it comes to mental health, it's just low iman. Just read Quran and everything will fix. Do we deny this? No, we don't deny that the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it has an effect. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He called it a shifa, He called it a cure. But if someone wants to look at mental health this way, they have to do the exact same thing when it comes to physical health. So if your son has cancer, just read Quran, get him to read Quran, and it'll go away. Obviously, no one approaches it this way, nor should they. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said, مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ دَاءً إِلَّا وَأَنزَلَ الشِّفَاء, or ad-dawa, depending on the narration. There's not one illness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places on the earth or sends down, except that He sends down the cure. So there's cure for both. Any illness there's a cure for. By the nas of this hadith. We know it has to be. The Prophet ﷺ told us, so we know it's true. So just taking shari'i cures and applying them only to mental health and laughing at any sort of other thing and attributing it to weakness, in physical weakness or emotional weakness, or attributing it to low iman, then by this account, no children should ever have any sort of mental illness. Because they're not mukallifeen, they're not responsible for their actions yet. How can they raise their iman or stop doing sins when they're not held accountable yet? Likewise, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ شَرَّ الدَّوَابِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, the worst of creation, or the worst creatures with Allah are those who disbelieve because they don't believe. So they're the lowest. The disbelievers have zero iman. So by that account, if it was just a matter of iman, then no Muslim should ever have a mental illness, and every Kafir should have a mental illness. And if we say, well, no, it's not the case, well, then we have to throw that argument out as well. Does iman affect things? Of course it does. We know in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas in At-Tirmidhi that the Prophet ﷺ said, احفظ الله يحفظك. Preserve Allah and He'll preserve you. So we know preserving the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His sharia and following His laws and doing adhkar and reading Quran and performing salat does have an effect for protecting people. But it's not just with mental illness, it's also with physical. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say احفظ الله يحفظك only in mental issues or emotional issues. No, it's general. Anything that can be preserved or protected falls under this hadith, unless we have evidence to say otherwise. So we need to think about this as well. Because ostracizing Muslims because they're dealing with something, what does that do? How is that fulfilling the rights of your Muslim brother? When you hear about a Muslim who has the flu or they had an operation, what's one of the number one things that every Muslim knows? What's from their rights? That they be visited. They even have councils, alhamdulillah, or groups that try to manage this thing in this city, that if someone's in the hospital, they'll let people know, so-and-so's in the hospital, we're going to go visit him, or please visit him. And this is excellent. But when you don't see someone for a while in the masjid, or they're off of work, or you see them in the masjid but they're closed off and something's different about their demeanor and their attitude, think about this as well. Maybe they're going through something emotional or mental where they need support. If it's physical, it's obvious. I can't walk, so someone's going to come and they'll help me clean my house. Okay, well that issue's taken care of now. But when you're stuck in your house, you're stuck in your room, a Muslim is stuck in their bed, they can't get out, they can't figure out the reason, and they're by themselves, and then the Muslim community looks at it as being, oh, he just doesn't want to come to the masjid anymore. So then this person feels worse, and it's this vicious cycle again. So inshallah we'll add a little bit more after the sitting. Allahu A'lam. Another issue that, and I've seen this firsthand in the community, and other brothers have told me about this, is when someone realizes that something isn't right with them, or something isn't right with their child, or their wife, or their husband, or their mother or father, and they speak to a professional about it, others will often come and discourage them. They'll say, oh no, it's just weak iman, don't get involved in that, or it's not good for you, or they're just going to try to medicate you and you're going to be a zombie, and on and on and on. And they start trying to go to so-and-so and he'll fix you. He knows how to do ruqyah. What do you mean he knows how to do ruqyah? Anybody can do ruqyah. This idea that there's special powers that people have to do ruqyah, and you have to pay them, and if you don't go to them, the other guy's going to wreck it. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's Quran, it's all a shifa. Read anything from the Quran, it's a shifa. You don't need to go to a special room or a special guy and turn the lights off and we read it from at this part of his body, at the head, and then we go to... No, there's none of this. If there was, the Prophet ﷺ would have told us. So either there's khair in it or there's not khair in it. If there's no khair in it, then why are we doing it? If there is khair in it, the Prophet ﷺ would have told us. Because we know that the Prophet ﷺ said, which means no prophet came except it was a duty upon him to show or to point his ummah to the khair that he knew for them, and to warn them from the shar or the evil that he knew for them. So either it's good or it's bad. If it's good, where did the Prophet ﷺ tell us? If he didn't tell us, that means either he knew it was good and didn't tell us, and then you have another issue to deal with if you're accusing the Prophet ﷺ of that, or he did tell us and show us. But this discouraging of people to get help when they have mental health or emotional health issues, this is not fulfilling the rights of a Muslim. You're hurting them. Leave the matters to professionals. If someone came to you and said, my car won't start, and you're like, oh yeah, it's because it's dirty. You'd be like, what's wrong with this guy? This guy has a mental problem now. Cognitively, he's not all there. Why would I get this guy's advice? So if you go to someone and you say, this, and this is going on, and he says, oh yeah, it's all just made up. Just go talk to this guy. There's hospitals, and there's faculties, and there's books, and there's professionals, all set up for this issue, but people are discouraging them from it as a means of weak iman. So imagine, and we'll end with this, the insult to a Muslim. Comes to the masjid 5 times a day. He pays his zakat. He fasts Ramadan. He's made Hajj and Umrah. He teaches his kids. He teaches in the masjid, or he spends time with his brothers. He gives sadaqah. He tries to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then he's befallen, or he's falls in some sort of mental illness, whether it's due to anxiety or depression or any other thing, and it's just because your iman is weak. What's the insult that's taken in this? The mushrik down the street, who's a zani, who worships other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have this illness now because my iman is weak, but this guy can function, even though he's from the worst of creation. What does mentally that do to a Muslim after hearing that? And it's all because of ignorance. Ignorance of the Sharia. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, don't seek help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say there's no mental illness. No. So there's no proof to begin with. On top of that, it's ignorance of the waqi'. It's ignorance of a science that's studied all over the world for hundreds of years. So and for what? Just to be the person that has the answer and say, oh, it's fine, just read more Quran. Yes, read more Quran. But what about when there's something going on in this person's brain? There's physical changes going on in this person's brain. So I'll end. If the solution wouldn't be applied to physical health, don't think that it's going to be applicable 100% for mental health. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our community more informed on the things that they need to be informed. وأسأل الله تعالى أن يشفي مرضى المسلمين وأقم الصلاة.